Okay, by popular demand, I decided I would make a day of eating. So just like in a regular training day, what does my diet look like? I'm gonna attach the preface that my diet has not always looked the same, based on fluctuating, levels of poorness, and then just what I have access to. It's changed a little bit. I've stuck to kind of the same fundamentals, and recently I started working with a nutrition guy, so that's interesting. Never done that before, and so there's going to be more variety in my diet today than there would have been if I made this video, say, a couple months ago. I used to, and I enjoy following, I wouldn't call it a vertical diet. I would just call it a bro bodybuilding diet where I'm getting just about all my carbs from rice. I eat meat with said rice. I eat some veggies, maybe a couple of fruits. I would say that, for the most part, due to money restrictions, I never truly followed the vertical diet to a T, just because I can't afford some of the components of that. And I always offset some of my protein using chicken, just because it's so much more affordable. But I kind of adhere to those general ideas. Maybe with a little bit more variety in what protein sources I'm selecting. So I used to buy a lot of cheap fish and I used to buy a lot of chicken to supplement the beef with some of the meals. But that would be my day, would just be eating rice and meat 6 times a day, with some kind of veggie and some kind of fruit and maybe some olive oil added to the rice. Um, you know, for fats, because I found those to be very, very helpful to have in my diet. I feel a lot better. But that being said, I have the digestive system of a child, so most fat sources really fuck me up. So just putting olive oil into my rice on my meals where I'm having a leaner meat like chicken or like fish tends to be the move for me as far as a fat source. Um, yeah, getting into it. I'm going to make breakfast. Okay, here is meal one. Um, all it is a banana for some potassium because I'm messing around with training after my first meal. I have 7 ounces of chicken for, I don't know, 60-ish grams of protein. I've got 2 cups of rice, or actually slightly less than 2 cups of rice because I elected to have a glass of orange juice with it today, and then some sauce. Pretty cool. That is meal one. Another thing that might be a little bit different about today's diet that I forgot to mention, aside from the fact that I'm working with a nutrition guy who's added in a lot more variety than I have used in the past. The second thing is that I've kind of changed my work schedule. Obviously, I'm self employed, so I set my own schedule, and I was following the same schedule where I would wake up, I would eat, I would do spreadsheets for about 2 to 3 hours. I would eat again and then I would go to the gym. That way I could get 2 large meals in prior to going to the gym, which I thought was very important to my progress, because I was used to, when I was going to college, I would finish up my all my classes for the day. Between classes, I would do spreadsheets, and by the end of my class day, then I would finally go to the gym. So I was at least 4 meals deep, and I always felt more well fueled when I'd had that many meals. But then I remembered back to summers where I would eat a single meal and I would go train. It still went okay. So, kind of what I've messed around with for the past 2 days is just eating this first meal and then going to the gym and seeing how it goes. Just not my norm. Usually, I would recommend people get at least 2 to 3 decent sized meals in prior to their training if maximizing their strength is their goal. Usually, I err on the side of 2 if you're someone who likes to train early. I don't want you sitting around waiting all day, or bending your schedule sideways to fit it. You just want to fit in 2 meals generally beforehand. But I'm messing with one right now, and so far so good. I hit a big old overhead press PR yesterday, following this schedule, so it obviously can't be that bad. Okay, next up we have my pre and intra workout. I put these on my story. I can kind of quickly go over what they are. It's nothing too crazy, just because enough people asked. The pre workout is either, I use either coconut water, or today I'm just using basically a coconut powder, for potassium. Basically because you want to make your electrolyte intake proportional to your fluid intake, because hydration status comes down to more than just how much water you're drinking. It has a lot more to do with how much water you absorb and retain, and electrolytes and carbohydrates are kind of the move for that. So we have water, a coconut powder, we have caffeine, and we have pink Himalayan salt. It sounds like some hippie shit if you're not familiar. Um, you know, it doesn't matter that it's pink Himalayan salt. Someone might tell you it's better due to some like additional minerals that might be in it. If you're trying to get your minerals from salt, you're a moron. Um, that's not the main point. The main point is that pink Himalayan salt tastes less salty, so you can fit a little bit more of it into a drink before it starts to taste like shit. And then here is the intra. The intra is Gatorade, added dextrose to fit my macros. Then it is creatine, essential amino acids, and more salt. That is what it is. Kind of don't like going over this stuff because it's cool initially. I get a lot more engagement than I generally get. A bunch of people will message me asking about it, but the problem is none of the people messaging me, I can tell, like looking at them, that they're not the people who should be putting a ton of thought into their supplements. I realized it was weird to be talking just staring at some bottles, so I flipped it around. Yeah, the main reason I don't like talking about like supplements and like supplements is because people tend to hyper focus on it because they think it's a shortcut or they think that that's the difference between them and someone much stronger. And I get all these people messaging me like, "Oh, what's your go-to pre?" And they seem very disappointed when it's not like a pre-made pre. It's just a couple of ingredients I like. Supplement guys are weird, man. I like supplements. I think they're very interesting, but I think that it's all really important to function under the knowledge that that's 2% of your progress at best. It's really not that important, right? And so when all these guys I can look at and say, okay, you haven't even hit you haven't selected some smart macros and hit them for a while. Don't worry about your intra. You know what I mean? Just eat a good, well-balanced pre-workout and post-workout meal that fit into your daily macros. It'll make 10 times the results than the perfect intra-workout nutrition. So it's kind of why I don't really talk about it much, though it's something I find very interesting, and it's something I'll probably talk about more in the future, just because it's something I feel very strongly about and I like talking about. I just don't want to mislead young lifters into thinking that it's even remotely important. Just a quick note for anyone who is interested um, about intra-workout nutrition. Aside from the goal that's like universally accepted, which is managing your hydration status, so intaking water, electrolytes, and maybe some small amount of carbs for water retention, right? That's pretty universally accepted. The other side of intra-workout nutrition, that isn't as conclusive in the literature is intaking potentially carbohydrates and essential amino acids, right? Branched chain amino acids, the research has become quite flimsy looking if you look at a lot of the more comprehensive reviews and meta-analyses out there. It's not very convincing. But a guy who I believe is very smart and I respect an extreme amount, John Meadows, who I think is a wonderful middle ground between practical application, like first-hand knowledge, but also being versed in the literature. He points to a specific study where they paired essential amino acids, not branched chain. There's not really a good reason to have branched chain in my opinion. Probably just want to intake essential amino acids, the full spectrum of amino acids that we can't produce within our own body. He's got a study that he points to where they showed that the pairing of essential amino acids with some amount of carbs, I believe it was 40 grams, resulted in increased hypertrophy for a training block. So if this is something you're interested in and you want to see if it has any measurable impact on your recovery, what I would recommend is you just go buy a bulk pack of Gatorades, because Gatorade contains dextrose. Powerade does not. Dextrose is just a very quick digesting carb. It's very close to being converted to glucose. So that's probably the most readily available, or you can just buy a bulk thing of dextrose, but then you probably have to flavor it. So just go buy Gatorades, and then buy just amino acid or essential amino acids, preferably from dirt cheap subs or bulk supplements, so you don't have to pay for marketing, and like they don't have to pay their athletes. They don't have to put all this stuff into ads. You're just buying the raw ingredient and just throw it in the Gatorade, right? That is going to be good enough to see the benefit for everyone. So you can fiddle with that for maybe a couple of weeks of training, see if you find your recovery is improved or not. If it is improved and you're getting more advanced and you have the money at your disposal, you can either buy a pre-made intra-workout product, or maybe instead of Gatorade, move to highly branched cyclic dextrin, which tends to be a little bit better. Just don't go crazy with the quantity of carbs that you're putting in your intra. I think people obsess about cramming tons and tons of like 100 carbs intra-workout. At that point, I think you're just beating a dead horse. You may as well just eat a little bit more pre and post. I usually only would go up to like 40, 50. I think after that it's pretty useless, and just leads to your stomach being slightly upset while you train, which is never good. Just yeah, don't fall through the more is better approach for intra-workout carbs. I've done that many times. Please learn from my mistakes. It's just not worthwhile. Just eat a little bit before and after. Eat a little bit more before and after. All right, so we finished training for the day. Brutal 2.5 hour session because I had to get in my SSB work and speed deadlifts and RDLs and then gluten hamstring work. So pretty brutal. I feel like I got hit by a bus. Really quick post-workout meal that is very easy to put down. I have here 15 ounces of egg whites. They're pretty flavorless, not very hard to drink as long as you buy pasteurized. They're totally fine to drink. And then normally I eat 4 English muffins with some jam on them just because it's really quick, and I have to eat again in about an hour. Bagels were on sale this week, and I'm poor, so I bought these. Find them a little bit easier to eat quickly. Just gonna put down, I think 2 of these would be the same amount of carbs as I would be getting otherwise. I'll double check that. I eat 3 if that's how many I need to eat to match the carbs of my standard post-workout. And then I'm gonna set a timer on my phone to go put on rice to eat again in about an hour, maybe an hour and a half if I get caught up doing work. That will be meal 3. Okay, my apologies, fellas. Forgot I was filming what I was eating. This was 400 grams of cooked rice, 8 ounces of 93.7 cooked beef, glass of kefir, already eaten and not shown, I think 75 grams of broccoli, something like that. Just put on my rice for the next meal. Here is Scooter. Scooter, come here. What a guy. All right, meal 4 was pretty goddamn similar to meal 1. It was 400 grams of cooked rice, a tablespoon of olive oil on the rice, salt on the rice, 7 ounces of chicken breast, and some sauce to make it easier to eat. Was supposed to eat some broccoli with that, felt a little bit shitty, so I opted out because I'd rather not have to throw that up and eat it again, which I've had to do many times, so I've learned my lesson. It's probably about 8 o'clock now. Gonna set a timer for an hour, keep cracking away on some spreadsheets, and then got my final meal, my blender meal. This is the one I'm excited to show you guys because I like this meal a lot. Okay, this is my final meal, which is my favorite meal of the day. It's 2 cups of whole milk, a handful of spinach, a 3/4 of a cup of oats, a whole banana is in there, and then whey protein. Recently got permission from my nutrition guy to switch over my last meal from more rice and beef over to this blender meal, which is super easy to eat and definitely makes my day more manageable. And then over here we have young King Maxwell following his nutrition plan. Yeah, thank you for tuning into my day of eating.